And this is something that I feel like is going to allow me to live my most fulfilled life, because how I see it is that this is my pathway to serve and to impact. I'm helping these individuals thrive at the highest level in their life.
Welcome to Taking Back Humanity, the podcast that's all about breaking free from the shackles of modern life and living on your own terms. If you're tired of the 9-to-5 grind, feeling unfulfilled, and wondering if there's more to life than the daily routine, then you've come to the right place.
Welcome to the Taking Back Humanity podcast.
So welcome to this episode of the Taking Back Humanity podcast. I am your host, Aaron Shade. To show that it is possible to transition away from a job and pursue the life that you want on your own terms, I'm bringing on a special guest from Melbourne, Australia. Today we have Trang, who left her job in the sports industry to pursue a mentoring business for women. Welcome, Trang. So glad to have you here.
Hey, Aaron. Thank you so much for the invite. I am honored to be here and looking forward to having this conversation.
Great. So why don't we just take a moment and get to know you a little bit and just tell us about yourself and your business.
For sure. I'll start with the brief version, because I'm sure that,
Sure.
like we don't want to be here for 5 hours.
No.
But yeah, as you introduced, my name is Trang, and I've been on a bit of a journey to get here, ups and downs and unexpected turns to get to where I am now. And I'm sure we'll go into that. But where I am now is I am running my own full-time business, working as a mentor, especially for women who want to pivot and build their dream business of impact so that they can fulfill their purpose and their potential in their lifetime, and ultimately achieve freedom and fulfillment. And this is something that I feel like is going to allow me to live my most fulfilled life, because how I see it is that this is my pathway to serve and to impact. I'm helping these individuals thrive at the highest level in their life, thrive in their lives as business owners, thrive in their relationships, thrive in their health, and they're just really stepping up as human beings. And yeah, when enough individuals thrive, then I believe humanity will thrive. And when humanity thrives, then the world gets to thrive for all forms of life and future generations. So that is my vision, and that is what I do.
That fits very well into Taking Back Humanity. Definitely want to see more people have that path where they can live their own dreams. And I think that what you're doing there with the women is very helpful to making them achieve that.
Yeah, thank you. And we spoke about this yesterday. Like, I really resonate with the podcast, like Taking Back Humanity. There's so much meaning, and there's so much depth to that. So yeah, I love what you're doing, Aaron.
Thank you very much. Just a quick origin story type of thing here. When you were a little kid, what did you dream your life would look like? Did you have was there a job that you particularly wanted, or a career path, or any of that when you were younger that maybe inspired you to live where you're at now?
That is a good question, because I haven't thought about this, in that nothing comes to mind when I was young that, I was set on doing. How there are kids who are like, I want to be an astronaut, or I want to be a singer. I didn't have that as much, but there were definitely signs of my tendency, or my enjoyment of, entrepreneurship, which is what I'm doing now. I remember when I was only 8 or 9 years old, I would get blank A4 pieces of paper. I would fold them in half and create a bit of a storybook. And I would then try and sell these storybooks, which were 3 pages long, terrible storylines with, just written in gray lead pencil. And then I would then try and sell these storybooks to my family members who would come over to visit. And I remember trying to sell one of these books to my grandma who came over for 20 cents or something like that. So not much, but I think like deep down inside me, I've always had like a little bit of a entrepreneurial mind. I've always liked to be creative, and that has then come out in, me running my own business now, even though the narrative throughout my childhood, especially throughout high school and uni, was to get a job that was stable, where I could be employed and I could have that security for the rest of my life. So I could, make sure I've got a roof over my head, and I could put food on the table. Even though that was the narrative, I then still found my way back to my creativity and expression of my true self.
That's amazing. I had a similar type of origin story myself. When I was little, my father had left my family when I was about 9 years old. So it was just my mother raising me. And she got me hooked up with this thing called the Big Brother and Big Sisters program. And it's basically where you have adults that'll come in, they're volunteers, and they mentor you through part of your childhood. And the guy that did that for me, his name was Vinicio. And he would take me to movies, he'd take me to different parks. We'd play some games. We might go out to a restaurant with him and his wife. And that really helped me quite a bit when I was a kid, when I didn't have my parents always around and I was living practically alone at the time. And I found out that he was a travel agent. And so that kind of sparked something in me like, that sounds like kind of a fun thing. I've always dreamed of traveling, but I'm a little poor kid that, I'm never going to be able to afford travel. And then here I am nowadays, and I've traveled to 20 countries, and I help others achieve that dream if they want to take their time to travel, or find more time to travel, or even money to travel. And so it's just interesting how that came full circle, like over 20 something years later. And now that's what I'm doing. So then just another thing here, just what did you do for work before you started this business?
So when I finished high school, I went to uni and I graduated with a master's of physiotherapy. And that's what I thought I was going to do for the rest of my life. I was like, I'm on this pathway to becoming a physio, a really good physio, and that was it. But I also did have another branch as well, where I was a personal trainer. I did that whilst I was at uni. And then that became my first side business while I was practicing as a physiotherapist, where I started to niche down and work with runners in particular, because I loved running. So what I was doing was working in the health and sports industry as a physiotherapist and as a running and strength and conditioning coach, which isn't technically a 9 to 5, because it's not 9 to 5. It's not a corporate job, but it was the professional job that I finished up uni with, and it was the stable pathway that I was going to please my family with, that's for sure.
Sure. How did you feel each day working with people like that and doing that job? What emotions were you feeling? What did you feel like it was fulfilling in its own way, or was there something lacking there?
That's a really interesting question, because it was a mix of emotions and awareness for me. So, back when I was 18 and I chose this pathway, I put it as my first preference of the university degree that I wanted to go into. Like, I made a decision that was best based on what I knew at the time as an 18-year-old, what I knew about the world. And at the time, because there was such a strong narrative of, okay, Trang, you've got 3 choices when you grow up of what you can do. You can become a doctor, you can become a lawyer, or a disappointment.
Wow.
So like, and I'm kind of like I'm exaggerating a little bit, but my parents, they are immigrants, and they have the best intention to set me up for a successful life. That's based on what they knew, and that's what they thought would be best. So based on such a strong narrative of going into these like medical pathways, because my dad is a doctor and he worked so hard to become a doctor in Australia, even though he's an immigrant, he's incredibly inspiring. But it was just too much for me. And I landed in a bit of a happy medium of physio, because physio was still clinical. It was still a respected profession, but it was also sporty because I like sport as well. So it was that happy medium. So I thought that that was the right choice for me. But there were signs throughout uni and through my first few years of work that it wasn't completely aligned and it wasn't my dream pathway. And those signs were the fact that like I didn't even know what physiotherapy really was. Even whilst I was at uni, I'd never seen a physio before. I just read the job description in some career book when I was in high school, And believe it or not, being the high achiever that I was, even though I had always done pretty well at anything that I pursued, my first physio job out of uni, I actually got fired after 6 months.
Wow.
And if that's not a sign, I don't know what is, but that's the only time I've ever been fired from a job. And that shocked me because I was like, okay, I'm not one to, not do well at things. Like I do well in school. I do well outside of school. I'm a hard worker. How did this happen? But now I look back and it just wasn't completely aligned. My heart wasn't in it. Therefore, I wasn't, it just wasn't flowing, like I was putting in the hours outside of work and I was trying to study and make sure that I was doing my job well, but it just wasn't clicking. And I think because I was trying to force something that just wasn't in true alignment to my heart, true alignment to my mind. And yeah, day to day, I wanted to do well. I wanted to help my patients, but I had all those little things that, were signs that there was still something more. Like Sunday night, I would have Sunday night blues big time, right? I would wake up the mornings that I would need to go into work and I remember, the alarm goes off. I look at the time, I look at the day and, my mind processes, okay, it's a working day. I've got to go into work today. And there would literally be that moment of, ugh, and then I need to drag myself out of bed to go to work. But these were the things that I thought were normal. I was just like, this is what adult life is like, right? We look forward to the weekend. We don't love Monday to Friday. And I just thought it was normal. But there were all of these little signs that there was something more and something different out there for me.
Yeah, I feel like through our education system, especially, it's designed to get you into the workforce. And that's what we're programmed to have, that where we go through school, we get our college degrees, and we go out into the workforce and then work and get promoted and get promoted and get promoted. And then when you're 65 years old or later, then maybe you can retire, and then maybe then you can go travel and actually live your life. And
yeah.
I really want to shortcut that for people and make it so what you're doing is what's resonating best with you, and what you're talking about sounds like you're doing just that. So what were some of the biggest challenges that you had when you were transitioning away from that job and then starting up what you're working on now?
Yeah. I'd even like to share the story of how this transition happened, because like I mentioned, I thought everything that I was thinking and feeling was normal. And I still was on this tunnel visioned mission to do this for the rest of my life. I didn't even question it. It was never actually an option for me to change. It just wasn't something that I was going to do. But then I got to a point a few years ago when I was 24 years old, one morning where things changed. And this story is whack, so everyone buckle in. What happened was this morning I got up to go for a run, and when I step out onto the sidewalk, I hear a crunch. And I'm like, what's that? What's going on? I look down and I'd stepped on a snail. Now, this isn't the first time I've stepped on a snail before, but for some reason, this particular morning, right? Like this particular morning, I couldn't help but feel guilty that me doing my own thing, living my own life, I had caused an effect on someone or something outside of me. In this case, I'd killed something, right? And I just felt so guilty, which got me thinking as I continued to run. It was a long run because I was doing triathlons at the time. I think I had 2 hours of thinking time. So I got thinking, I started to see the bigger picture of, oh my gosh, I feel so guilty right now. But in fact, my lifestyle in so many ways was already neglecting other forms of life. And, from that morning onwards, for the months that followed, I started to reflect on this deeper and deeper and started to see more and more ways of how my life had consequences beyond me that I would never previously think about, that I would never previously even see or care about. Whether it was the plastic that I was using or the clothes that I was wearing. I went down this full rabbit hole of processing and realizing, oh my gosh, my life has an impact. It was like a veil had been taken out from in front of my eyes because, we all know this. Like we all get taught in school, don't use too much paper because that's going to be another tree that needs to get cut down. Like we know that we have an impact, but only now did I actually understand. Only now did I actually emotionally care. And this sent me spiraling. I felt this weight of responsibility of this realization. I realized and recognized how powerful I was as an individual, yet still how insignificant I was. Like as one person, how can I ever make enough of a difference and enough of a change to this world? Every day there are there's more devastation happening, there's more suffering happening. How can I ever as one person make enough of a change? Anyway, so this got me into this quarter life crisis, I call it. And yeah, it got to the point where going into work, teaching people how to squat in a gym, teaching people how to do this as a wrist exercise. And like if anyone's watching the video, I'm just moving my wrist up and down or in circles. It got to the point where doing that day to day, it wasn't just something that I wasn't enjoying. It was something that felt meaningless. And, I've got to acknowledge it is an important job, right? Like there are people out there who need to get their pain addressed and need to improve their health. But for me, based on my journey and where I was at, it felt meaningless. So then that feeling became stronger. It became more urgent. It became louder that I needed to do more. I needed to become more. But I was confused. I didn't know what to do. So then I just explored so many options. I enrolled in like different uni courses. I looked up like volunteering. How can I like do more charity work? And I just remember having one conversation with my life and business mentor at the time, because I was already running a bit of a side business with my personal training. And he just laid it out so clearly. He was just like, Trang, you want to help as many people as possible. So what's the best way to help them? Imagine this. If you were alive during war, then what's the best way to help the soldiers? Would you become a doctor and help the injured soldiers in the hospitals? Or could you actually step back, work behind the scenes a little bit, and become the person who ends the war? And I was like mind blown. I was like, oh my gosh, that's it. It's not about treating the symptoms. It's not about trying to help the problem that's already there. Why don't we just end the problem in the first place? So then I started to see how all of these problems, right, like whether it was environmental, humanitarian issues, animal welfare issues, they're all spokes of the same wheel. And that wheel was lack of human consciousness. Lack of human awareness. Like me, I knew all of this, but I'd never previously understood. I never previously cared, never previously connected the dots. And I was like, that's it. That's what I've got to do. I've got to make it my mission to work with individuals, not just as athletes, but as human beings, to help them raise their consciousness, to transform their life, and to use their life as their own ripple effect to serve their purpose. So then I pivoted and then I expanded, and that's what I'm doing now. And that's the story of how it happened. But it happened gradually over time because of the challenges that came up. So actually getting to your question now, Aaron, the biggest challenge for me was a mental challenge. It wasn't so physical in that I take action once I know what it is that I want to do, or I take action once I know what I need to do. But for me, it was actually first overcoming fear. Every single fear in the world was what I was experiencing. Fear of the unknown, fear of failure. But most of all, what stands out to me is fear of what other people would think, fear of judgment, which I think back now and I'm like, that is crazy. How was I like limiting my pathway and living my life so much based on what other people would think or expect, like living my life for other people? It just doesn't make sense. But at the time, it was the biggest thing that was holding me back, because I had this respected, profession that I was known as. I'd built up an identity. It's what I knew. Like I was already doing well. I was getting asked to talk at conferences and stuff. And based on all of the people who were in my circles at the time, highly scientific professionals, me leaving that and going into mindset coaching, going into like woo-woo meditation coaching, like what, like I was so scared of how it would look. I was so scared of how it would look. But then I remember, after a retreat that I went to a retreat and we did some deep kind of like work, connecting to our purpose, connecting to our vision, our mission. It just became so clear that this is what matters to me. This is what I'm on this planet for. And nothing else matters anymore. Not what other people think of me, not the risk of failure, because I've got the rest of my life to do this. And if the time's going to pass anyway, I might as well spend that time doing what I want to do. So that was the biggest challenge for me.
Yeah. I would say fear of failure. That's something even I've dealt with throughout my entire life is, oh, what if I fail? Well, so what if I fail? Failure is your biggest teacher a lot of times, and that'll help inspire you to do something maybe a little different and try again, because everybody fails. I mean, I don't care what level of life you're in. I think everybody has different failures, and you can't fear that. You'd have to take it and learn from it. And I mean, that's something I've been working on myself. And then also, as far as like having all those beliefs around what other people think of you, it probably was just within the last few months where I just don't give a crap what anybody else thinks of me. If they don't like it, move on. And there'll be other people that do like it. If you're not authentic about who you are and yourself, then I mean, you're just putting yourself in a box that you can't get out of. And I'm really happy that you were able to overcome that at your age and not wait till you're around mine to get that stuff figured out.
Yeah. And like, there were moments where that fear was really like thrown in my face, because I remember like there was one time that I had launched my first, online group course where I was going to purely be talking about mindset, not the physical training, not the running, not the strength coaching. And I offered that to all of my current clients at the time. And I received my first text message from a client who said, Trang, I love what you're doing and good on you, but this just isn't for me. So can I cancel my work with you? Can I finish up? And I remember seeing that message and my stomach dropped. Oh my gosh. And then all those thoughts came rushing in. I was like, am I making a mistake? Am I going to regret this? Like, does this look like complete woo-woo to everyone around me? But then I just had to remind myself, I can be the juiciest peach in the world, but there's still going to be someone out there who doesn't like peaches. And that's okay. You just can't please everyone. But then what I can say, multiple years on, it's now at least 3 years on since that day, I've invited in and attracted in and connected with so many other individuals who feel like I'm speaking to their soul, who are inspired and need to hear what it is that I am sharing and what it is that I do mentoring for. So it's just a reminder that, not everyone is going to be your people, but there is a world of people out there for you. It's got to allow that to connect.
Yeah. I feel even in this podcast speaking to you right now that you have this aura about you that just presents what that inner purpose, and I can just feel it outward while you're speaking about it. And it's just really powerful to have the message that you do.
Thank you, Aaron.
So another question I have is, let's see here. Can you share some of your early days of being an entrepreneur, what that looked like in the beginning, and how you've maybe pivoted a few times to get where you are right now?
Yeah, sure. I just already started smiling because as soon as you asked that, the first thing that came to mind was a time that I was driving down the road and my fuel gauge, like the light had just come on because I barely had any petrol left. And I needed to get more petrol to even get home. I was looking at the kilometers that were left and I was like, I need to get more petrol to get home. But I knew that in my bank account, I only had 80 cents. And I was like, that is not enough petrol to get me home. And I had to get home. So I had to scavenge the coins that were in my car just to get enough petrol to get home. And that is a story that I share because like we mentioned failure before, right? That was an incident in the early days of my entrepreneurship journey. There were times where I didn't have any money in my bank account and I had to use coins in my car just to get home. And I could have used that as a moment of failure, of being like, oh my God, this is way too risky. This is like exactly what my parents warned me about, like no security, no stability. But like I just never stopped. And I think that is a huge thing that I say. Like, it's not even about going the fastest, not about setting everything up and becoming a 6-7 figure business owner overnight. It's just about not stopping. It's not about who goes the fastest. It's about who slows down the least. So that story came up to mind. So I wanted to share that. But for me, it was a very interesting journey in that it was a slow transition. Like over time, I gradually dropped back on my physio hours and then I increased more of my business side until I started doing it full time. And, there were so many ups and downs along the journey of, like seeming failures. Like I mentioned before, I remember my very first ever in-person workshop. I had like 25 people sign up. So I was like, yes, this is going to be a full room of people. And the workshop was going to start at 2:00. And at 2:00, I was standing there at the front of the room facing emptiness. Like no one was there. And then at 2:05, 2 people rolled in late. And then my parents rocked up because they were there to support me. So it was like 2 people plus my parents. And I just felt so humiliated. I was like, oh my God, I never want to do that again. And yeah, sure, it did put me off from running my next workshop for a while. But then I ran my next workshop eventually. Like 9 months later, I ran my next workshop. And now I'm doing 4-day retreats that are booked out. It's incredible. But now I've forgotten what your question was, Aaron. I go on such like big tangents. So the early days of entrepreneurship.
This is perfect.
Okay, cool. I am a talker. Can you tell?
I can totally relate to all of that because me and my wife launched a course online about basically teaching people how to save money traveling. And we launched it out. We got 0 people into it. And so we decided to, reshape it a little bit, do different marketing on it, and send it back out again. I think we got 1 person. But the thing is, we did all these pre-recorded lessons and we spent hours and days putting all this stuff together, and then nobody bought it. And I know all the reasons why that didn't happen. And we even beta tested it with some people, and they gave some feedback before we actually launched it. But yeah, it's just like, okay, do we even know what we're doing here? Should we, quit this whole thing? All those thoughts come to mind, but we are still pushing forward with this, and it's not necessarily a course anymore. Now we have a membership online, but still, it's just that persistence that will eventually lead towards where you're getting, and you're going to drop on your face many times before you actually get to where you want to be. But the journey is worth it, because otherwise then you're just going to have to go back to that soul-sucking job again and live that life where you're looking forward to every weekend and you're drained and you're depressed, and that's just not a way to live anymore.
Yeah.
So in terms of work-life balance with your current situation, what does that look like to
you? So my lifestyle at the moment, you could say, is very flexible, because I work fully for myself. I've got all online work except for the retreats that I run, which is like a couple of times a year, but otherwise it's all online. Most of what I do is like mentoring. So I do one-on-one mentoring. I do online group programs, and that means that I get to choose my own hours, which is really awesome. So how I do things in order to have that balance is I'm big on batching. So I like batch like a lot of my podcasts, a lot of my mentoring on the same days, so that I'm like in the zone, I'm focused, I'm serving the world on particular days, and then on other days I'm completely switched off. And I admit, I can be a bit of a workaholic. I would say I'm in a bit of a workaholic phase right now because I go through ebbs and flows. But like it doesn't feel like work, and it sounds a bit cliche, but it really doesn't feel like work. But how I do things is I actually go really hard on, really hard off. So I might go really hard for like 5 days, 5.5 days in 1 week, and then I have 1.5 to 2 days off completely. Don't even open my laptop, like socialize, rest, whatever it might be. But I've also done, and I really like this for myself. So like I'll share this, but take it if it works for take it if it resonates with you, but don't if it doesn't. Is going really hard for even more extended periods of time. And the reason why I do this is because I think of high performance like a high performing like car, right? Like the car's got to sit, it's got to rest, it's got to be in the garage, it's got to like kind of reset, whatever. I don't actually know how cars work, so I don't know why I'm using this analogy. But anyways, it's got to like rest, right? And then like if a Ferrari then gets turned on, it can like go really fast and it can perform at peak levels. But then it can't do that all the time. You can't just drive it all the time. It will like eventually break down. So then it then needs to like go back into the garage, be serviced, all of those things. And that's the approach that I take because, once I'm in the zone, it's like free momentum, it's free energy. So sometimes I've gone really hard for like 2 or 3 months where I'm like 6-7 days a week. And I go really, really hard because I'm like working on a project. I'm launching a new retreat. I'm working on a talk that I am delivering and I'm rehearsing. And that is part of it. Like entrepreneurship, as we were talking about before at the start, like at the moment, in today's world where there's a lot of noise, there's a lot of people doing it, it's a changing landscape. There is more competition, you can say, right? There is more competition and it does take work. Like if it were easy, then everyone would be doing it. We did sign up for this. We do need to put in the work. So then I do believe in working hard still, but then on the back of those 2 or 3 months of like working and in the zone, I'll take like 2 months off completely. So it still balances out, like it still equates out over time. And then I'll just like, go traveling for a couple, like I'm going traveling for a couple of months after next month, scuba diving, like hiking, just living life. Getting service, you could say the Ferrari getting service. So that is my approach. Like I go really hard on and really hard off. And that may work for some people. I've spoken to a lot of different entrepreneurs and some people would hate that, and they would rather just do like, 4 or 5 hours a day of work 7 days a week for the whole year. Like they like to have more of that micro level, work on and off. But I like to go a bit more hard and have, more contrast, more polarity, you can say. So yeah, everyone has their own style, and what works for you is what works for you.
Yeah. Me personally, I like to do somewhat similar to you. I call it prepay, that you get all of that work done and everything's going smoothly, and then like you're saying, take some time off and go traveling or whatever you want to do for that period of time and get that rest, and then get back into it after you're done.
Yeah.
So not like a 2-week vacation that you get with your job, or maybe more in Australia, but that's kind of the way it is in the US here.
Yep.
So looking back at your journey, what advice or words of wisdom would you offer to others considering a similar transition in life?
Oh. First thing that comes to mind, and I do believe that this is the first step and a very profound step to either facilitate where you want to go or to resist where you want to go, is to shift your circles of influence to reflect more where you want to go. Because based on experience, if you're hanging out, like let's say as an example, if you're working in a corporate job where the everyone around you, your boss, your manager, your colleagues, they all live by, the hustle mentality, they all live by climbing that corporate ladder, they all live by that narrative, then imagine how difficult it's going to be to break out of those set and ingrained belief systems, identity, values. Like imagine how hard it's going to be if you want to, I don't know, become a travel vlogger, or if you want to start like a cafe, or if you want to start your own, I don't know, candle product business, like whatever it is. Imagine how hard it's going to be when everything around you every single day is pulling you back to where you currently are. Whether we realize it or not, whether we like it or not, we are a mold of our environment.
Mm-hmm.
We're constantly being molded by our environment at a subconscious level. So as much as we think we can fight it, to some degree, we are still being influenced by the workings of what we are surrounded by. And yeah, you've probably heard of that saying, you're the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. And it's true. Like, look at the 5 people who you spend the most time with, whether it's like people in person, people online who you consume their content, or people who you talk to online, and look at, are you the average of them in terms of like the industry that you're in terms of your belief systems, in terms of your health, in terms of your financial situation, even in terms of your standards for performance, standards for work ethic. Like, you're going to be the average of those 5 people in every single way. So if you want to become an entrepreneur, if you want to have the flexibility to travel, then the question that I would ask myself is, how can I bring an entrepreneur who already travels, who is successful, and bring more of those people into my top 5? How can I bring someone who I want to become and is the embodiment of where I want to go and what I want to achieve? How can I bring them into my top 5?
Yeah, that sounds amazing, because I truly believe that as well, that through a lot of my interactions. So I'm part of a group in a membership called the Membership Experience, and within that group, it's full of a lot of different business owners, and we have accountability meetings every week where we kind of discuss what's going on with our business and bounce ideas off of each other and have a good conversation. And just having that environment and being around those people more inspires me to keep moving forward and keeps me accountable and keeps them accountable. So we're all, staying with the path and not just bouncing all over the place and getting distracted by the next big thing that's happening.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, even just from my personal experience as well, like 100%, I can say with certainty that if I hadn't worked with the business or life mentors that I've worked with, then I wouldn't even have a business today. Like, I can say that with certainty. I would have given up. I can pinpoint the exact moments where I was about to give up and just settle for, physio for the rest of my life. But they like pushed me, or they inspired me, or they encouraged me to keep going. I can pinpoint those exact moments. So I know that if I hadn't shifted my top 5, if I hadn't worked closely with those who had faith in me and were walking by my side along this journey, I wouldn't even have a business today, let alone one that is thriving and continues to grow year on year. It's just like, and that's when we fail, when we want to give up, it's not a reflection of our capabilities. Like, at the time, I thought maybe this isn't what I'm made for. Maybe I can, this isn't the path for me. I thought that, but here I am doing it. So that is just evidence that it's not about our capabilities. I believe that we all have potential. It's just facilitating and allowing that potential to be actualized. And our environment is such a big part of that.
Yeah. Just getting out of your comfort zone. I mean, a lot of people think, oh, I got this job, I'm comfortable, but they're not growing and expanding to bigger ideas and living closer to what they resonate best with. They're just traveling through life and getting to the end. And that's just not the way I want to live. And a lot of other people would rather not do that either. And I want to help those people. And so do you. So yeah, it's really exciting. So where can people find you and learn more about your work?
For sure. The best place to find me is on Instagram. That is where I am most active. So my Instagram handle is Trang Cess Nguyen. And I know that is a bit of a mouthful, so I'll spell it out. TrangCessNguyen. Find me there, and then everything else you'll be able to get from there, like whether it's my website, my podcast, all of that will be found at my Instagram.
I will also include all that information in the show notes, so you can get all of the websites and everything for Trang there. So that is our show. So thank you, Trang, for sharing your story and your wisdom with us today. It was a pleasure having you on this podcast, and I wish you continued success in your business and life. And it was incredible to hear your story today, and I definitely just wish you the best.
Thank you, Aaron. Thank you for having me on the show. This has been so much fun. And I really do hope that this has given at least, one person that inspiration and that permission to follow what it is that they want to do.
Absolutely. Thank you. Head over to the show notes where you can leave us a rating and review, and I'll see you in the next episode.